following program is sponsored by Michael W. Smith. The views expressed on the following program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership.
Arizona, Phoenix. Brother Mike is back on the radio. Welcome to HardcoreChristianity.com. Thanks for tuning into the program. Today's Bible study, Apostles and Prophets, running wild. Today on Hardcore. Hey, will you call somebody and tell them radio program's on? I'm about to give you some interesting revelations today about people running around the churches calling themselves apostles and prophets. Believe it or not, they're lying. Shocking, right? Yeah. This is Brother Mike. I'm the professional counselor at the Arizona Deliverance Center. Been a counselor for 40 years and been on the radio here in Maricopa County 20 years. That's a long time, and yes, you figured it out. I'm an old person. I live in Sun City. I'm an old man. How about that? Old man with a lot of experience. If you go to the website, hardcorechristianity.com, you'll find out that the Deliverance Center is downtown. We're on 15th Avenue, just south of Osborne Road. We have 2 live services every week, Thursday and Friday nights. Thursday and Friday nights at 7 p.m. Arizona and Pacific time. We've had the time changes. I hope you switched your clock. I believe it's permanent now. If you look on the website, you'll see that you can come to my Deliverance and Healing Training class the 4th Saturday of every month at noon. You can sign up for one of our free seminars. You can hit the PayPal button and send us another donation, as you have for the last 20 years, keeping us on the radio. Thank you for that. Sister Karen is on the homepage of the website, ready to list your house for sale. By the way, thank you for the referrals you sent her in 2021. They were fantastic. Much appreciated that. Don't forget about the Zoom deliverance service. It's every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Arizona and Pacific time. You can get the Zoom by going to the website and get the password and the code and join us at 6 p.m. for deliverance and healing. Apostles and prophets, what is going on here? I think you've already seen this in your churches. It's all over the United States now. People are calling themselves apostles and prophets, and literally almost none of them actually are one. If somebody hands you a business card and says they're an apostle on it, or you get a flyer in the mail saying Apostle so-and-so will be there speaking at our church, okay, back that up. Be very careful. That person is not an apostle. As you might imagine, the Bible has specific definitions for these terms, and these people don't fit it. Let me give you a couple of examples here quickly. Simon Peter in the New Testament was an apostle. That's the Greek word apostolos. It means someone who speaks and acts in the place of God. Here's Peter in 2 Peter chapter 1. He says, Simon Peter, a servant and apostle of Jesus Christ. The Greek word for servant there is doulos. It means a slave. Apostle is the Greek word, as I mentioned, apostolos. It means to speak and act in the place of God. Peter was calling himself a servant, a slave, and an apostle. Well, in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul comes under fire from other Christians. They were denigrating his apostleship. Okay, they were questioning him. And Paul would have none of it, so he spends some time explaining to them why he's an apostle, and he gives the definition and credentials of an apostle. Here it is, 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Paul says, quote, truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you. The Greek word for signs there is semeion. It means miracles. Truly the miracles of an apostle were wrought among you in these, with these characteristics. And he lists them here. In all, number 1, patience. Hupomone is the Greek word for patient. It means endurance. Number 2, signs. As I already mentioned, the Greek word for signs is miracles, semeion. Wonders. That's the Greek word teres. That's a miracle that causes shocking awe. That's a shock and awe miracle, a teres. And he says the last one is mighty deeds. That is the Greek word dunamis, which means acts that are supernaturally based. Okay? That is the definition of an apostle. So when you see somebody advertised in a flyer or in the newspaper or on the internet or on Facebook, what have you, you ask yourself this question. If that person's an apostle, then they have to meet that definition to actually be an apostle. If they do not meet it, they are, as you might imagine, in the fraud zone. Because there's fake apostles out there. Duh, no kidding. Revelation chapter 2. Jesus says to one of the churches, quote, I know your works, I know your labor and your patience. Okay? Now those three things there are hinting that for something pretty darn good. And then he says, I know how you cannot bear with them which are evil. Another good sign. And it says, you have tested them which say they are apostles, and they are not, and found them to be liars. Okay? So the definition I just read to you from the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 is the information that you have to go over with someone who claims to be an apostle. So if you're sitting in that person's service, you saw a listing on the internet, on Facebook, on somewhere, there was going to be an apostle at your church, and they don't meet that criteria that Paul laid out in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, that person then is not an apostle. They are lying, Revelation chapter 2. I hope I'm helping somebody. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul warns the carnal Christians again. The carnal Corinthians are warned again. He said, these people are false apostles. They are deceitful workers. They transform themselves into the apostles of Christ. And he says, don't worry about that. Don't be shocked at that, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore, it's no big deal, no great thing if his ministers are also transformed as ministers of righteousness. What's Paul saying here? The carnal Christians were accepting people into their group who were liars, who were deceivers, and who claimed to be apostles, but they were not. They didn't meet the definition of an apostle that I just read to you. If you have someone come to your church who does not meet that definition, hey, that's it. They are faking. They're lying. Okay, they may be good people. They may have a lot of gifts. They may be great preachers. They may have all kinds of different things. But that doesn't make them an apostle. Okay? Because you have the gifts of the Spirit, one or more, does not make you an apostle. Okay? I have seen with my own eyes literally thousands of people delivered from demons and hundreds of people healed right in front of my face, right in front of my eyes. Okay? I am not an apostle. Brother Mike is not an apostle. Okay? I've seen more people delivered than any person you've ever met. I've seen hundreds of people healed right in front of my eyes. Last Friday, a woman was healed of fibromyalgia. Right in the service there. It's on video. You can watch it if you want to. Go to youtube.com/houseofhealingaz. That does not make me an apostle. Okay? An apostle has a specific definition, and if you do not meet that definition, you are not an apostle. If you tell somebody you're an apostle, you are lying, partner. Hello? You're lying. You're lying. It's not true. It's not true. The same thing is true of prophets. If somebody hands you a business card and says, hey, I'm a prophet. Prophets, as you may know, are never wrong. They are not wrong. They can't be wrong. Okay? They cannot be wrong. Hello? They are not wrong. Okay? You cannot be wrong and be a prophet. Okay? What these people are doing is they are giving people impressions and words. That's what I call it. Impressions and words. That does not make them a prophet. The definition of a prophet is in Deuteronomy chapter 18. Come on. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Jeremiah chapter 23. God specifically warns you that there are certain requirements of a prophet. The Greek word is prophetes. It's a person who speaks in the place of God. And in Jeremiah and Deuteronomy, it specifically says that if that person comes to you and performs a miracle, or they tell you something, but it does not come to pass, or if they tell you something that does come to pass, and then they tell you to follow other gods, that person is not an apostle, not a prophet, and not an apostle, and God did not send them. It specifically says it in these verses. So these prophets, all these prophets that predicted Donald Trump would serve a second consecutive term, and there were dozens of them. Kat Kerr predicted that he would be reinstalled in office and serve a second term. And as you can tell, we're stuck with the demon-possessed, dementia-ridden Biden. Trump's nowhere to be found. These people are not prophets. They are wrong. They did not hear from God. I don't care how many times they tell you they went to hell, they visited heaven, they visited hell, they interviewed people in hell, they interviewed people in heaven, they saw people in heaven, they saw people in hell. It is all a conjecture of familiar spirits. It is not real. It is not happening. It's all caused by demons. And the Bible has warned you, Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18 through 22, Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 14, specifically it says in there that if a prophet, even if they perform a miracle, even if they tell you that something is true and they encourage you to go with other gods, or when they tell you something is going to happen and it doesn't happen, that proves that person has familiar spirits. All the prophets that predicted Donald Trump, they are all infected with familiar spirits. You cannot let these people in your church. You cannot let these people speak to your congregation. They will spread familiar spirits in your congregation. My advice to you is run.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership. This program was sponsored by Michael W. Smith.